All right, AP Scholars, we're taking a look at FRQ Practice number 3, Question 2. That's right, the one about the token pass game. What kind of game is this? This seems like a really boring game. You can't make any decisions, it's just all automated. Whatever. You know what? When you go on to the AP exam, it doesn't matter what the game is or whatever, just try to cut to the chase. I found that actually I had to struggle against this game because my mind started thinking about how does this game work? I really like games, so I started trying to think about it. But if this was in the middle of the AP exam, that would be wasted time. So try and cut to exactly what you're being asked to do in terms of code and wipe all the rest of it away out of your mind. Since it's a timed exam, you can't afford that kind of frivolity, if you will. Frivolous thoughts. So we've got this token pass class. It has two instance variables. It has a constructor we're going to implement, and then there's this distribute current player tokens method. Basically, these things boil down to a constructor that you have to write. So you're going to initialize these instance variables, and there's an array you have to iterate through to process to load it with random values, and you have to randomize current player. In part two, there's a method that behaves in a particular way we'll look at in a minute. So we'll start with the answer for the constructor. So the constructor basically is going to access these instance method, and according to these rules here, set up the instance variables as they should be. So for example, it says that the board should be player count size. So we have to initialize the board and instantiate the board, I should say, to be that right size. You're going to go to each element in the array and initialize it with a random number between 1 and 10, inclusive. And then we're going to also initialize current player to a random integer value between 0 and player count minus 1, inclusive. And that's basically the story. That's the whole thing. You don't really have to understand what the game is or anything. You just got to know that information, really, to do question 2A. So here's the answer. So I start off by initializing instantiating the array, the board, to be that many elements long. That's all you gotta do there. I have a for loop. I got a for loop that is going to go from 0 to player count, or one less than player count. And each time I'm gonna load into that element a random number between 1 and 10. And this is something we did way back in October or something, or maybe even September, where we were doing those. Remember, we made the dice rolling programs and stuff? So this is an important actual thing to know on the AP exam. How do you generate a random number? It's a testable thing. So basically, math.random returns a number between 0 and 1, but not including 1. So between 0 inclusive and 0.9 repeating, but never quite 1. So if you were to multiply it by 10, you would get a number between 0 and 9.9 repeating. So if we were to then chop out the decimals, because this is supposed to be an int, an array of ints, then whatever our answer was, it would be between 0 and 9. Because the highest you can get is 9.9999, etc. So that's why we have to put in the plus 1. Also notice where the parentheses are. If you were to do something like this, the casting operator would actually take precedence over multiplication. So we would cast this number to an int, which would make it 0 no matter what random number we chose. 0 times 10 is 0, plus 1 is 1, so it'd always be 1. So make sure you put those parens in the right place. You could put them like I did, you could put them here. It's up to you. Either way is fine. Just make sure they're making sure that this operation happens first. The plus 1 doesn't matter too much if it's in there or not. So that's what's going to, basically, we're going to loop through all the different board positions, or all the different ints in the array, and randomize them. Last but not least, here's how you make it the current player variable a random number between 0 and player count minus 1. We can use that fact that the int chops off the decimals and math.random doesn't quite go to 1 in order to just multiply by player count. So say we had 4 players. We want a number that is either 0, 1, 2, or 3. So this is a number between 0 and almost 1. So when we multiply it by 4, pretend it's 4 for a second, we get a number between 0 and almost 4. And when we chop off the ints, we either get 0, 1, 2, or 3, never a 4 because of the fact that the 1 here is not inclusive. There you go. That's how you do it. So I hope you were successful in this question. It turned out this one wasn't so bad because it's just a constructor. As long as you remembered how to generate random numbers, you were probably okay. As long as you could get to understanding what the question was asking, which is not always easy. So here's a question 2b. Actually, before I go over the answer, maybe I'll just tell you what it is. This is a complicated looking question. There's a lot of words. Basically, there's a whole little I don't know where it went. I don't know. There's a whole little diagram here that shows you what happens. So basically, whoever the current player is in your array. So let's say it was position 2 was the player. You scoop up all of the tokens here. So you set that to 0, and then you distribute them. So you'd start here and then loop around here, 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 and so on. So I'd add 1 to. This is how it would work. I'd scoop all this up. So set it to 0. The next person I'd give up 1 of them to, so I have 5 left. Then I'd give another 1 here, so increase this by 1. There's 4 left. Increase this by 1. There's 3 left. Increase this by 1. There's 2 left. Increase this by 1. There's 1 left. Go back here. Increase that by 1. There's 0 left. Done. So you end up getting sort of this distribution. The 6 was set to 0, but we ended up distributing ourselves back 1. And then this one got 2 because we hit it twice. This one got 2 because we hit it twice. This one only got 1. So it's sort of that cycle of like increment, 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 increment. And then you did it 6 times because you started with 6. This, whatever the rules of the game are, like this sounds like a stupid game. Like there's no choices or anything. But who cares? Like don't worry, it's like a coding back question. It really is just a coding back question with some fancy rules, and you have to do it inside of a class. But I don't think that's really significantly harder than a coding back question, other than there's so much to read to do it. So here's my solution. There's a way to do this with modulus that would shorten this code considerably. I didn't want to use it because it's a little bit out there, but if you want to look into that possibility, or if you'd like me to show you, please feel free. Pardon me. I'm so boring. Please feel free to ask in the discussion channel, and I'd be happy to code that up for you. But this is a perfectly good way to do it. So basically, I'm going to grab how many tokens are on the board at current player's position, and then I'll set that to 0 because we're supposed to be distributing them. And then I'm going to decide who is the next. The first player to distribute the token to will be the next player down the road. So current player plus 1. And then I'm going to go a while loop where I'm going to keep on doing this until I have no more tokens left. And I already got my tokens up here. So basically I first check to see, hey, did I go past the end of the board? So, I might have done that right here. Like current player might have been the end of the array, the last index. So the first thing I do is I check to see, did I go overboard? Oh, the puns coming fast and furious at you. If I went overboard, over the end of the board, I'm going to go back to the beginning again, and that's what creates that loop. And this is where modulus might have been useful to shorten the code, but an if statement is perfectly good. So I just do that check first. I wrap myself around the board. I then increment the number of tokens at that position. I decrease the number of tokens I have left to distribute, and then I go to the next player. And I just while loop that over and over again. No return statements needed because it's a void method. There you go. That's basically the answer. It's not that much different than a coding back question, to be honest. But man, getting there, reading through all that stuff to figure out what's going on, a little bit intimidating, like legit intimidating. Like when I went to answer this question, I had to take a deep breath. I was like, okay, I gotta go and figure all this out. Like I feel it too. And if you feel it, I totally don't blame you. But that's why we're doing these practice questions, so that each time you do it, you realize that feeling is going to evaporate once you dig into the question. A feeling of intimidation and that hesitance that you have to dive in there evaporates as you start diving in. And of course, on the day of the AP exam, you're going to be hyped to answer those questions. So you probably won't have as much hesitation because you'll be like, don't have that much time. But nonetheless, having done all these practice questions will make that diving in easier for you and give you the confidence to realize that, yeah, you can do these questions. And if that was your trouble, just diving in, like you weren't able to dive in, no problem. I understand. Like, just come back in, try it again. And if you did dive in and you had any problems that weren't explained in this video, please feel free to type up in the discussion channel your question or email to me. Okay, AP Scholars, have a good day. Bye-bye.